Welcome everyone to our monthly webinar. Today we are talking about reigniting your passion, and this is something that I think is timely with a lot of people that I've been talking to lately. There's just a sense of, we've come through some really difficult seasons, and in doing that, like through all of the last 3 or 4 years, a lot of us have lost a sense of our purpose and our passion and even a drive to keep moving forward. Because some of us are still experiencing pretty significant difficulties. And, how do we push past that and really dig deep and, find that hope again to pursue things that are of value to us. So I am excited to have Connie share her heart with us today about this topic. So Connie, take it away.
When we were planning the schedule for this year, we were just trying to think of things that were outstanding that we could talk about. Something that the Lord laid on my heart was this. When I planned to talk about this, I didn't foresee the weeks that would come right before it. And so I'll be talking quite a bit about what I've been experiencing and how I've been able to, even in just the last few days, starting re-engaging myself and reigniting like my own passion for life in just the last few days, because it's been a tough road for me as of late as well. So I'm actually talking about a lot out of my own experience today, even recent experience. So bear with me if it's still a little bit fresh. So my first question of the night is, what are your passions? So sometimes we think about, passion as like, just in like intimate stuff and whatever, but passions are way more than that. And like as children, we're passionate about so many things and we dream big. When people came up to us and said, what do you want to be when you grow up? We didn't say, oh, I want to be someone who pumps gas, or I want to be a cashier. We dreamed those big dreams, and we based that on what made us excited and what brought us joy and the things that we really wanted to do. And as we grew up and got older, we let those things fade into the background. And a lot of times we even lose those passions because we haven't engaged in them for so long. And I kind of want us to keep that in the forefront of our mind as we go through tonight, that we had passions as a kid, and our passions have a lot to do with, our dreams, our purpose, our destiny, and it also has a lot to do with us experiencing our lives to the fullest and not just being stuck in a rut and going day after day after day in the same patterns that we've been in, because life is so much more than just going day to day. And so I wanted to talk about what causes our passions to fade. And so I'm going to touch on some of the big ones, and I'm sure there's others, but this is the list that I came up with. So being told that we can never do it. And I don't know about you, but sometimes when you tell people your big dreams, they're like, you can never do that. Or that might be something that so-and-so can do, but I don't think you're equipped to do that. And those naysayers a lot of times have a huge impact on us. And we get it in our heads that maybe they're right. Maybe we can't do that. And I remember telling my old boss, oh yeah, I'm going to write a book. And she literally laughed at me and said, Connie, I love you, but you're never going to write a book. She goes, you know how many people say they're going to write a book and never accomplish it? And when she actually saw my book done, she actually apologized for that, because she was like, I honestly didn't think you were going to do it, and I'm obviously wrong. So just because someone doesn't believe that you can do something, don't let it hold you back. Trying it and failing. A lot of times we try something, and if we fail, we give up or we don't try again because we're like, okay, maybe this is something that I'm not supposed to pursue. Maybe this is something that was for a time and isn't anymore, and we give up. Another thing that can cause passions to fade is rejection. If we do something that we're passionate about and we get rejected for it, there are times when we just won't go back to it. And a good example of that is, you know, when I was a kid, I was a jokester all the time. I crack jokes, and I would make my cousin laugh so hard that we'd be up till 1 a.m, and I'd just have her like laughing so hard. Her mom would come in and be like, "Oh, we're trying to sleep, go to bed." But that was just who I was. And somewhere along the way, I lost that in me because people were like, "Can't you ever take anything serious?" And then they were like telling me I needed to take everything so serious that I finally gave up. And so that part of me, I only let out with certain people. And I need to let that out whenever, because that's who I am. And I shouldn't be letting rejection hold me back. Other priorities taking their place: work, education, family, friends. Those things are important, but they shouldn't completely replace your passions. Our passions are what give us life. They give us joy and they empower us. And if we completely let them fade away, and in order to have place for work, education, family, and friends, then we're not living a balanced life, and we're going to end up feeling burnt out, exhausted, weary, tired, because we don't have the things that are giving us life, fueling all of the other activities that we're doing. Expectations of others. Other people may expect us to be a certain way or do certain things or whatever. And when we are doing, like, participating in our passions, sometimes it will go against the expectations that others have of us. And so sometimes we let it go. Believing you're not good enough to either, like, to bring those passions to fruition, or if it's like even, your purpose or your dreams, having a lack of time of participating in them. A friend of mine lately was talking about how she has no time for one of her passions, and her passion is spending time in nature, and she just doesn't have time. And I said, well, what is your biggest thing? And she's like, well, I'm constantly with my kids and we're constantly stuck in the house. And I'm like, well, it's summertime. If you're wanting time with nature, take the kids out to the park. And she's like, oh. And I'm like, take them for a walk along the river, like the not river, we don't have a river here, the stream or whatever you call it. And she was like, oh, that's a great idea. And so that was just one of her big passions that she could implement into her family. And so there's times when you can even take your passions and implement them into your work, education, family, and friends in order to make time for them. Or you forget about them. It's been so long since you've been engaged in your passion that you forget all about that you ever had that passion to begin with. And that usually happens with stuff when we're passionate about from childhood or from our teen years. As we get older, we just forget. Or we give up because we feel like we're too old or too young or too tired or too weary. We're not educated enough, not experienced enough, not talented enough. And all of those things may be our perception of where we're at. But I believe that God gives us passions and purpose. And if he's given them to us, then obviously we are who we're meant to be. And we're meant to actually experience those passions, experience that purpose in our life. And so even though our perception may say, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not educated enough, or I'm not experienced enough, in reality, God has created us to be enough to do it. Fear. sometimes we let fear hold us back from pursuing our passions. And it could be like what I was saying before, fear of people. And sometimes it's just fear of what others think about us, fear of like what happens if I pursue something and it falls apart. What happens then, right? So sometimes it's even the fear of the unknown, but all sorts of different fears can cause our passions to fade. Insecurity in our about ourselves, and doubt about ourselves too, whether we're good enough, strong enough, any of those things. And there's probably others that can cause our passions to fade into the background. But these are the ones that are really evident in my life. And so they're the ones that I wanted to talk about tonight. And I wanted to talk about them because it's important to know what causes them to fade. Because if we're not aware of what can cause them to fade, then we're not necessarily keeping our eye out for that. And then when they do fade, we don't know why. So I wanted to talk about the link between passion and purpose before we move into anything else. Because what is it? Why am I even so focused on passion tonight? And the reason is because there is a strong link between our passions and our purpose. And one of my passions is reading. And one thing that I didn't realize is that my passion for reading, when I was a little kid, my mom would read us nightly Bible stories. And when I was 3, I started taking the book away so I could read. And my mom just let me. And by the time I was in grade 3, I would be reading young adult books and stuff. And I'd always been an avid reader. And I never knew that my love for reading would actually be a part of my future. I think about how many times I have to read and reread all of the things I've written when I'm writing my book, in order to make sure that it makes sense, make sure that it flows, make sure it answers all the questions that somebody might have about what I'm saying, because I won't be there to answer their questions. So my book has to do it for me. And so I have to read and reread and reread. And then even after I edit, I reread it again. And so if I'm not passionate about reading, how would I ever be able to be an author? And so God put that in me so that I could do that. And I think that's so cool that from this little kid, 3 years old, I had that passion. And who knew that would be a part of what God had for my future? And like I was talking earlier, my friend's passion for nature, she can implement that with her family. And she also has this strong desire to have a farm one day. And so even that passion for nature is part of her future. They want to have a small farm or a small ranch. And so to me, that's very powerful, the link between passion and purpose. So I wanted to move into from the link between them into how to revive them. So before we reignite our passions, we have to revive our passions. And there's quite a few ways you can do this. First off, you need to remember what they are. So like I was saying, if it's been a long time since you've experienced those passions, then you're going to have to go back in your memory and remember the things that brought you life. Remember the things that brought you joy. Remember the things that empowered you. Those are your passions. And then make time to pursue them. A lot of us let busyness close out those things. And so by making time to pursue them, we're opening ourselves up to actually have time to re-engage in those things that give us life, those things that fuel us. Make them a priority, instead of making them last on the list or letting them fade to the background. Make them high up in your priority list. Believe that you're good enough. So now we're getting into the mindset stuff. Believe that you can do it. Believe that, you know, if one of your passions is dance, believe that you can do it. You know, don't listen to the naysayers that say, oh, you can't dance. Who are they to say? You know, some people have said to me, you can't paint. And then I paint something and somebody's like, oh, that's actually really good, right? So it's also based on perception. Release your fear. If you're fearful about things, just release it to God and let it go. Let go of what other people think and stop people pleasing. The only opinion that should matter when it comes to your passions, your purpose, is yours and God's, because God created you with that purpose in mind, and you know what your purpose is. Deep down inside, you know. And if you don't know, then you need to do some searching. Focus on your strengths. Wow, I spelled that wrong. A lot of times that we focus so much on our flaws that we forget that we even have strengths. And, you know, by looking at our strengths, we then can look and see how it helps us walk into our purpose or step into our purpose. And like I said, our passions and our purpose are strongly linked. Trust that God's purpose for your life was designed specifically for you. And consider that your unique mix of skills, talents, and abilities and experience are all part of that huge purpose. See rejection as an opportunity to course correct and try again. If you've been rejected, that just might not be the opportunity for you to pursue that passion or that purpose in your life. And so give yourself the chance to go and course correct and try again, or go to a different place and do it again. And my final one is never give up, because the only way to ensure failure is to not try. So if you never give up, then you can't possibly fail, because you just keep trying something new. So how do we reignite our passions? So like I said, the first step, revive your passions. And that's what we were just talking about. And I just wanted to say before we get deeper into this is pursuing the things that bring us life will give us energy to face everything else. We need to fulfill our passions and purpose in life to motivate us to do everything that we need to get done. And like I was saying earlier, if you don't know your passions, take some time to reflect on what energizes you, what brings you joy, what empowers you. These are your passions. And if you find that you're starting to think about things that deplete your energy or take away your joy or leave you feeling useless, those are your anti-passions. Those are the things that could ultimately be keeping you from your passions even. And so keep your eye on those too. Second part of this is recognizing that God has created us and given us our passions and our purpose. And there's some scriptures I want to share about that. The first one is Psalm 139, 13-16. You made all the delicate inner parts of my body and knit me together in my mother's womb. Thank you for making me so wonderfully complex. Your workmanship is marvelous. How well I know it. You watched me as I was being formed in utter seclusion, as I was woven together in the dark of the womb. You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book. Every moment was laid out before a single day had passed. Psalm 139, 13-16. And I think that gives us a really great picture of what I'm talking about when I say that God's created us and given us our passions and purpose, because he planned our lives before we were even born. And so he was part of that whole process. So he knew what we would need. And so he made sure that all of what we would need, we would have. And then another verse that I want to share with you is Ephesians 2:10. For we are God's masterpiece. He has created us anew in Christ, so we can do the things he's planned for us long ago. And the last one I wanted to share with you about this is, for I know the plans I have for you, says the Lord. They're plans for good and not for disaster, to give you a hope, a future and a hope. Jeremiah 29:11. And that verse for me is my life verse. Whenever things seem to be going really badly, this brings me back to the place where I'm like, where I need to be. Because a lot of times I get caught up in my own head. Oh, things aren't going well, and so maybe I'm on the wrong path, or things aren't going well, so maybe I've made a wrong choice somewhere. And I really believe that sometimes when I get that in my head, it's because the enemy is poking at it. And there's a lot of times when all I need to do is just trust the Lord and know that his plans for me are good. And once we recognize that God has created us and that he's given us our passions and our purpose, then there are some things that we can do in partnership with God to reignite our passions. So we're going to move on to those. And one of those is delighting in the Lord. And sometimes, we go, oh, that's just being happy, that God is with us and for us. I think delighting in the Lord is even more than that. I think about a parent and their child, and how that child will come in, and my friend has 2 young ones, right? And every little thing they do that's like new or unique to that child, she just lights up like a Christmas tree, and she delights so much in that. And I'm like, we need to be like that with the Lord, where when we go to spend time with him, we're just like in awe, and we're just like excited to be there. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it just feels more like, okay, well, I'm doing my regular devotional time. Okay, good. And it doesn't feel like delight. And we need to come back to the place where that's delight again. And I think that is a key point in how we reignite our passion, because delighting in the Lord brings that joy back, brings that spark back into our life. And then the second part of partnering with God in this is commit everything we do to the Lord. And even if it's like, menial tasks, if we commit it to the Lord, then the Lord has the ability to move us in a direction that we might not realize. And it could bring life to something that could be very mundane. For example, grocery shopping. Grocery shopping is very mundane. However, if we commit it to the Lord and we're like, even in my grocery shopping trip, Lord, if you have something for me, just bring it out. Who knows who you're going to meet while you're there, and who knows what impact you can make on their life. And I know when I've run into someone and been even able to help them in a 5-minute conversation, it has brought so much joy to my heart. And so I know that even in that mundane thing, God can still use it. And the next point is trust God with everything. And this one's hard a lot of the time, because it's, I think we have two types of people. We have the people who trust God with the big things, but have a hard time with the small things. And then you have the people who trust God with the small things, but have a hard time trusting God with big things, right? It's really hard to trust God with everything. And I think it just comes with practice. For me, it comes with practice. The more that I trust him, the easier it becomes to trust him with more and more and more. And I think sometimes we put way too much faith in ourselves and not enough trust in God. We think that, oh, we can handle it. We can handle it. Well, honestly, God created us to depend on him. So no, we can't always do it on our own. And so we need to be able to recognize that and trust God with everything, because he is worthy of that trust. And the last thing I wanted to say on how to reignite these passions is to lean in. Don't pull away from God when things get tough, but get closer to him. And that's true even when things are good, right? Don't pull away, just push closer in. And, I think about, once again, a parent and a child, right? Like when that child is sad or needs comfort, what do they want from their parent? They want to be hugged. They want to be held close. And God wants to do the same for us. He wants to be close, but it's our choice. And so I believe that that's a key point too. And we're trying to reignite our passions is to lean close. And there's a scripture that supports this. It says in Psalm 37, 4-5, take delight in the Lord, and he will give you your heart's desires. Commit everything you do to the Lord, trust him, and he will help you. And, I think when it comes to reigniting our passions and getting back to that place where we have joy and life in every moment, it's being able to do this on an everyday basis. So practical steps, because let's face it, sometimes we need practical steps in order to implement things in our lives. So number one, remember those things that have brought you life, that have brought you joy, that have brought you excitement, and that have empowered you, whether it be in childhood, youth, young adulthood, or even recently. Make a list of those things. Number two, make room for them in your life. Schedule time. Don't just think of a time, schedule it. Schedule time to pursue those things. Make them a priority. Involve your family in them as much as possible so you can enjoy those things together. Deal with your negative mindsets. Believe in yourself, release the dependence on what others people think, and focus on what you and God think. Let go of fear, insecurity, self-doubt, and allow God to show you who he sees you as when he looks at you. And part of that is also replacing lies with God, with truth. Number four, forgive and love yourself. If you failed in the past, or if you've not even tried to do some of your passions or to pursue your purpose, you may have been very hard on yourself. I know I do become really hard on myself. And you really need to forgive yourself and to move forward. Loving who you have been created to be is sometimes hard, but it's necessary. We tend to focus on negative aspects of ourselves. And while it's important to recognize our flaws, we're not supposed to dwell on them. It's much better for us to focus on our strengths and see how they can lead us to pursuing our passions and ultimately our purpose. And on that one, I think I need to share about what's been happening with me for the last few weeks. So my dad has taken a turn for the worst. And I don't know how many of you know this, but my dad is fighting cancer right now. He's very weak and very tired. And I've been struggling quite a bit the last few weeks in giving everything to God and trusting him with everything. But since Sunday, God did a shift in me. And it's interesting that on Sunday, I leaned in and I gave God it all and I trusted him with it, which are some of the key points I've been making tonight. I had to forgive myself for doubting. I had to forgive myself for taking steps back and not trusting God fully with that. Because those weeks were really hard for me. And it's been amazing how God shifted all that and how it's changed this week. This week has been awesome. I have still been tired because I'm still catching up on sleep I missed during all that time. And I'm, still recovering, but I'm in such a better spiritual place and such a better emotional place than I was. And I have so much more life, more energy. And so when I'm saying that by re-engaging your passions, that all of a sudden you'll have more energy to face those other things, I'm saying this from experience because I've been able to get back into my workout routine, which I hadn't done in months. Like there's a lot that has been restored to me just in 4 days. And so I'm saying this out of my own personal experience. So I just want you guys to know it works. Number 5, lean in. Whether things are good or bad, continue to get closer to God, and it will help you to completely trust in his purpose for your life, which leads into the trust God for everything. God's desire for us is to live our lives to the fullest. And John 10:10 says, "The thief comes to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they might have life and have it to the full." God doesn't just want us to live life and get by. He wants us to thrive, and he wants us to live our lives to the fullest. He doesn't want us to just go day to day. He wants us to have vibrant, exciting lives. He wants us to be able to see each day as an adventure. And no matter what, never give up. Like I said earlier, the only way to ensure failure is to give up and to not try. So these are the practical steps that you can do to start reigniting your passions and re-engaging with them on a daily basis. So I moved pretty quick tonight. We're already on the activation, but I feel like these things are things that you probably need to ponder over the next while. At least I did. So, and I still am. Like, I'm still pondering them and still moving further in them, because trusting God with everything, like I said, is a journey. You gain more trust in the Lord the more that you trust him. So the activation today is going to be focusing on our strengths. Because like I said, as human beings, we tend to focus on our weaknesses or the places that we fall short, and we tend not to see a lot of our strengths. And so I want to take these 5 minutes that we're going to do and make a list of your strengths. And I want you to take that list, if you still have time, and think about how those things are linked with the things that you're passionate about. And then write how both your strengths and your passions are linked with your purpose. Because we've talked about the link between our purpose and our passions, and we've talked about how our strengths can like fuel our passions. And so I think this is a really cool thing, is to see how our strengths actually come in line with our passions and our purpose. The 3 keys to remember from today are: number 1, passions bring us life, joy, and empower us. We need this to be able to live our lives to the fullest. And number 2, focus on your strengths because they will help you pursue your passions and purpose in life. Focusing on your flaws will do the opposite. It'll actually cause you to withdraw. And number 3, no matter what, never give up. Our passions help us find our purpose. And this verse really stood out to me as I was preparing for today. The Lord will work out his plans for my life. For your faithful love, O Lord, endures forever. Don't abandon me, for you made me. And the reason why it really stands out to me is that he works out his plans for my life. And his faithful love endures forever, which means that him working out his plans for my life doesn't just end at any point, because he does it because he loves us, and he loves us forever, not just today, not just tomorrow, not just when we're doing the right thing. He loves us always. And so he's constantly working on his plans for my life. Even when I've had 2 or 3 bad weeks where I've withdrawn, he's still there, and he calls me back, and he beckons me back, and he's just waiting for me to lean back in. And it's such a beautiful picture of his love for us. So next month, Laura will be speaking on family dynamics, and I'll let her share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so next month I'll be sharing about family dynamics and how it how, depending on how our families are look, because let's face it, we have all sorts of different families. We have single parent families, we have families that are going through difficulties, we have large families, small families, and how, and even for me in my stage of life right now, I have, even in the most recent past, my family is shifting. Like some of my children are leaving the home, and it's just different stages of life. And how do you navigate those things, and how does it um impact us on personal levels, but also on other levels when it comes to like family purpose, or pursuing the dreams that we have, or sometimes the family dynamics. And this one applies to my life as well. When we talk about extended family, sometimes it can cause a lot of conflict and division and separation. And so I just want to talk about some of those things and just bring them to the forefront, and maybe bring up some strategies of how we can navigate through some of those challenging family dynamics that always seem to come up at the most inconvenient times. I know for myself personally, I won't get into it now, but with the health of my dad, um, there's some strain in our family. There's some family relationships that aren't great right now. And when I think about the potential loss of our dad and what that's going to mean for some of our family interactions, like it actually does cause me a little bit of anxiety, right? And so there's even situations like that. How do we navigate situations like that? And so that's about what I will be talking about next month. So I welcome you all to join me as I share my heart and that topic. If you are struggling right now and you just need someone to journey with you, someone to walk alongside you, to support you and pray with you, and maybe give you some strategies of how you can move from where you are to where you want to be, don't hesitate to reach out to us and book a mentoring session. We have an online booking system where you can just go on there and choose a day and a time that works best for you, and choose what mentor that you would like to meet with. And Connie and I are planning on raising up 3 more mentors in the next couple months here, and hopefully have them launched by September. So there'll be more probably dates and availability coming in September. But in the meantime, just take a look of what the availability is online. I know Connie and I already meet with quite a few people, and so our availability isn't wide open, but there are openings. So if you are in need and you would like to meet with us, that is an opportunity for you to do. And last but not least, if you want to listen to Connie and I on the go, subscribe to our podcast. We love to have more people subscribe. I know that depending on different algorithms and stuff, it's great for us to have people subscribe so that you get regular notifications of when we release new content. And yeah, so far the feedback's been great. Those that have been listening, they really have appreciated just the laid back conversational style and the information that we provide, and the true life stories that Connie and I share from our life. So it's lots of fun.